Hello, this is Sheshachalam from Astroguide Mysore. Today let us understand the subject of Venus and married life. I am doing this series with all the planets, Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter. These five planets I have completed. So this is about Venus. So when I am doing this, I have a particular format in which I am explaining it. I am just not explaining for all the 12 houses from the ascendant. So for the while, I have just taken ascendant as Taurus, but it is generally for all ascendants. I am taking it as first house. So I usually take only these three houses. That is the ascendant, the previous house, the 12th house, the second house, seventh house, the house for marriage and married life, the sixth house and the eighth house. And I'll tell you why I usually take this particular position. The ascendant is the self. Second is for family. I'm just giving you very simple significations which you actually can relate to. Ascendant is self, the ego, the personality, the character, the behavior. Second is his way of life with regard to, the initial thinking, the initial belief, family life, and what he has learned when he was young. So that's very important because that's what makes a basis for married life. Because some phobia or some difficulty, what a trauma which a person would have encountered in very young age, that actually without his own knowledge can come back and hit in a family life. That is when he or she gets married. So second house. The 12th house is the house of physical intimacy, that we call it as the bed, pleasure, moksha karaka, moksha house, not moksha karaka, moksha house of moksha, that is self-realization, disinterest in any particular thing can also be seen in the 12th house, relinquishing things. So many things can be seen in the 12th house, and particularly for married life, we usually see whether the person has good matching with the other chart. When the 12th house represents the five senses and the way we react to the materialistic world through these five senses, because these five senses are the communicators. When we touch something hot and we feel that it is hot, that means yes, the communicator is correct. And you touch something hot and you feel it cold, and something is wrong. So that particular, I am just telling you to in a very high simple level, that these are the Panchendriya Tattva house, the house where you have the understanding of the communication through Panchendriyas. Okay, the seventh house, the house of relationship, marital relationship, or any relationship with a stranger or a new person who comes into your life, is to be seen from the seventh house. The sixth house, the house of Roga, Ripu, Runa, that is loan, enemies, and illness, service, competitiveness. All this can be seen from the sixth, but because it is the 12th from the 7th, if you take 7th and go in a clockwise manner, this is the 12th house. Because it is the 12th from the 7th, it destabilizes this particular house, that is, it unsettles it. The 8th house is the house of deep desire, innate desires, the yearning to do something, what we call as the gut feeling, which continuously disturbs you. And also it is the house for litigations, arguments, court cases, and other things, etc. So humiliation, suspension, so many things comes here. But why is it important for marriage? Because we need to see if the 8th house has any role to play with the 7th, then it will be difficult. So now we are taking only the planet Venus. We are only taking planet Venus and seeing in a pure sense as to if Venus is present in the 12th, first or second house, 6th, 7th or 8th house, what is going to happen for married life, whether it is good or bad. So let us take it to only to that level. So Venus in the ascendant. I have simply taken Taurus ascendant. It's not in a rule that I am only talking about Taurus. No, I am talking about every ascendant. It's easy for me to talk like this. So, Venus in the first house is an extremely good position for married life. It's an excellent position. It makes a person creative, makes a person have very good imagination, feelings, and loves to enjoy life, because of all the planets, if you make a list of the planets, sun, moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus is the only planet which enjoys life. Saturn, Rahu and Ketu, Venus is the only planet which actually tells that, okay, let us keep things aside, let us keep all those serious facts aside, let us enjoy life. So that is the only planet which actually forgets the past and doesn't worry about the future and is in the now. It only acts now. So that's a beautiful planet. That's why Venus placed in the Lagna, fantastic position for a happy married life. I'm not talking about the bad effects of Venus here. If Venus is badly posited, then anyway, whatever I have told you can simply turn it aside, turn it upside down. So, happy married life is seen from this particular position. A very romantic personality, loves poetry, loves artistic, fine arts. So, very nice personality with Venus in the ascendant. So, if the same Venus goes to the 12th house, this is the Karaka position for Venus, because Venus has significations for 12th and the 7th. Two houses, Venus has Karakatva. Karakatva means it is a signifier. So, Venus signifies all that which can be transmitted through our senses. So, if you call it, physical intimacy, you call it lust, you call it love, you call it, belongingness, you call it cozy, you call it, what do you want to call this? Through our senses, whatever we feel very happy, we get a good night's sleep. Venus posited in the 12th house is a fantastic position. So this does not give rise to Karako Bhavanashaya. When Venus is in the 12th, it actually is a fantastic position for the 12th house, provided it is not afflicted. So if it is afflicted, let us say Rahu is placed there along with Venus, it will totally turn the tables. It's a very different combination. Venus Rahu in the 12th house, and Venus Saturn in the 12th house, Venus Mars in the 12th house. Venus unafflicted in the 12th house is a beautiful position. So this is a planet which usually does not give a lot of doshas. It is a pure planet. It's an excellent planet for spirituality. That is why it is still in the 12th house. It's an excellent planet for straightforward, simple, uncomplicated living. So that is what is Venus in the 12th. So having again Venus in the second house, once again this is also a very good position, giving rise to good family values, happy mother's love is very nice there with this particular native who has Venus in the second house. And this native knows how to eat, what to eat, when to eat, how to eat, and they are very decent with regard to their food habits, provided it is not afflicted and retro. So they are very good in this particular, when it is in the second house, excellent placement. So these placements of Venus will never affect the person in his married life, and it is actually progressively good. The placement is good. Coming to the 7th house, a lot of myth is there with Venus when it is placed in the 7th house. The myth is that people, when they see the Karaka planet Venus in the seventh house, we call it Karako Bhavanashaya. That means the Karaka planet Venus itself is spoiling the seventh house Karakatva, that is married life. But if Venus is purely positive, very good, without affliction, marriage gets delayed and it might sometimes be denied also. It's like marriage cannot happen at all. So, is it really Karako Bhavanashaya? Let us understand. So, we have seen many places that if Jupiter is in the fifth house, Karaka, planet for progeny, is in the fifth house, unafflicted, it gives rise to Karako Bhavanashaya. That means the planet itself is telling you, why do you want to have children? Your goal in life is something else. Spiritualistically, it is trying to tell you, because it aspects the ascendant with its ninth aspect, the best aspect of Jupiter, and it very clearly indicates that why do you unnecessarily want to spend or waste time in getting into samsara, that is the regular day in day out life and its difficulties of marriage, children and all this. Why do you unnecessarily want to get into it? Go into higher studies. Fifth house is very good for higher studies. It is also aspecting the ninth house, and Jupiter is telling that you should gain knowledge, you should go towards moksha. So that is why when Jupiter unafflicted in the fifth house in any chart will usually give difficulty in having children. That doesn't mean that it is a bad planet. It is trying to tell you that many other people are having children. You can adopt them if at all you want. Why do you want to go to have, why are you so much worried about having children? So that's what is Jupiter telling. In the same way, Venus, when it is placed in the seventh house, is very clearly giving you an indication that why is marriage so important? Why can't you take up a good cause in life and do something very important in life, which actually is like service, or which is actually like taking care of many people who are there without good even people are there without a single meal in a day. So why don't you take care of all that? Do service, do help. So this charity and goodness towards life and people is what Venus is trying to tell when it is sitting in the seventh house, unafflicted, because it is directly aspecting the ascendant. So if it is in the midpoint of the seventh house, 100% it will delay marriage. Same way, if Venus gets afflicted, then marriage will happen. If it gets afflicted to a certain extent, let us say a small extent, for example, Venus and Jupiter both are sitting in the seventh house. Usually, when people see this in the seventh house, they feel that the first marriage will not work, there is going to be a second marriage, because this is Viguru Yoga. So, in Venus and Mars sitting in the first house, they will tell that, oh, promiscuous, there is a lot of aggression, the person requires not what is a normal family life, she or he wants something more. So they might become, they might cross the boundaries, ethical boundaries of married life, they might have affairs. Once again. So what actually it is doing now, that Venus is getting spoiled by because of the association of another planet. So if it gets spoiled to a very high extent, then there might be abusive, the native might have gone through abusive relationships, the husband or the wife. I am not telling that only males are abusive. The reverse also is applicable. Females also become abusive in married life, and whoever it is, going through an abusive married life is a very, very bad thing to happen to anybody. So, very highly afflicted Venus in the seventh house, then too much of disturbance with regard to married life or with regard to physical intimacy and physical life, because not every relationship ends up in a marriage. So, when somebody is has a Venus which is afflicted in the seventh house, that doesn't mean that the person would have married and then gone through an abusive relationship. It can also happen in an affair or a relationship, before even thinking about marriage. So marriage should not be taken as a theoretical concept that they went into church and got married, or they went into the temple and got married. No, I'm not talking about the date of marriage. Affairs and relationships are also to be considered as a marriage if it goes to a level of commitment and intimacy. So if Venus is well posited, and then there is a slight chance that if there is a transiting planet over it and it is pure Venus there and marriage happens, it's a fantastic married life for the person. But if it is afflicted, there is going to be difficulty because of the planet which has afflicted Venus. So the person native will respectively go through those types of difficulties. So any planet, I'm telling, if it is Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, whoever is associated with Venus in the seventh house will spoil Venus and its karakatva of pure, happy married life will get spoiled because of the affliction. Okay, so Venus here in the sixth house in the Rogasthana will give rise to disinterest in physical relationship, and there might be illnesses which might cause difficulties in hormonal difficulties, which might cause lot of mood changes and mood swings. So sixth house Venus, a very bad position for happy married life. So that is not taken as a good position at all. So because it's also the 12th from the 7th house, the Karaka itself, the Karaka means the planet which is the factor for happy married life, itself will destabilize the marriage. It will start, shaking the basis of married life. If the 7th Lord, whatever it is, whatever the Lordship is, if the 7th Lord is weak and Venus is positioned in the 6th house, in the Mahadasha of Venus or the Bhukti of Venus, that is the Antardasha, that is the Sub-dasha of Venus, major period and sub-period what we call, then Venus will become strong and destabilize the 7th house. There is a chance that the first marriage, or there might break, or there might be separation. I will not call that every separation will lead to a divorce. Sometimes separations might also, people can also come back and meet together and have continue their marriage. So that doesn't mean that if somebody separates from a married life for a year or 6 months, that doesn't mean it will end up in a divorce always. There are many cases where separation has happened and divorce was not even speculated, and both of them have lived alone for the rest of their lives. This has happened. So, if Venus is in the 8th house, the 8th house Venus is again a very tough position. So, we are able to see here, what is the 8th house Venus? Why is it a tough position? Because of your married partner, you might be ending up unnecessarily fighting in court, going through litigations, going through humiliation in family. So a lot of difficulties because Venus is in the 8th house, which also gives rise to difficult, to manage secret diseases, what we call as undiagnosed diseases, which is very difficult to diagnose. So that is, it might also be what is known as STD, sexually transmitted diseases. So if Venus is weak in the 8th house, it's a tough position. If it is strongly malefic in the 8th house, it is a tough position. If Venus unafflicted in the 8th house, is a little better. Unafflicted in the 7th house, beautiful position. If it is purely posited, very good. But if it is afflicted, not good. And the intensity of affliction will cause more difficulty in the first marriage. So Venus in the 6th house, not at all good. However, it is positive, it is not good. So these are good positions, these are bad positions of Venus, except for one position in the 7th house when Venus is not afflicted and purely positive. It might cause delay or it might not give marriage at all, but there will not be suffering because of married life. This is very important because we are not talking when the marriage will happen, we are talking the quality of married life. So, quality of married life, Venus, pure in the seventh house, if it gives marriage after even 35 years of age, it will be a very good married life. But if it is afflicted, then these three positions are very bad for a happy and a simple married life. It will complicate the marriage to such an extent that the person will suffer. So, thank you very much for today's class. I hope I have covered the subject of Venus and married life. Thank you.